Hello everyone to another video, and today we're looking at what if civilization started over two human scenario, meaning there are two human species basically. The Neanderthals and the Sapiens. The Sapiens have most of the current countries that are alive currently, and Neanderthals are all the way in Europe, and there's still some of them over here. But this video we're going to see some exploration, some nations falling, some nations going north, and others straight up becoming very weird. But let's get straight into this. I know I haven't been doing the whole thing over here. That's because I kinda got not copyrighted or anything like that, but some things. But as you can see, Sparta has the Spartan Federation has invaded Athens. Now, quick question: why didn't they start over here? Take the islands and all of that? That's because they forgot to take the islands. Just kidding, they couldn't. They didn't have the navy. And by now, they currently are in a better spot, but they're still having some troubles, basically. So, the first things that happened was that the second army over here managed to do some stuff. The third army did also. But over here, it was kind of a big show and go, as the third army had to again do some stuff. This pocket was basically taken over, but soon it was re-entered, and it's a big attack and back and forth thing over here. But we do see that eventually the third army does manage to kick out the Spartan Federation's third army and second army, while over here the first army is getting pummeled all the way over to the second army, and the rebels took advantage of this to take over Athens. But Athens was like, okay, as long as we get to fight, that's all good by us. And quickly, something very interesting happens, as you may not have noticed, but the war on both sides hasn't very much processed themselves very well. And as you can see, not only does Sparta now have two sides to fight on, but one of them is straight up not the best fight you could have. You had all of these possibilities, and now your people are fighting against you. Just great. But the Spartan army manages to take over the largest part of the rebellion's first area that managed to first-handedly only that managed to basically alone. It was all alone, and it managed to get independence. But we do see that over here many of these Spartan forces quickly move into these areas, taking only a lot of the areas because they can and not because they are strategic. And we quickly see that by the last thing over here, Sparta has kind of diverted most of its forces, so when it tried again to attack these areas, it couldn't really do so. It did manage to do some damage to the Athens morale after they saw that they again couldn't defend. But once they saw that and got news of the rebellion over here, the Athens navy went over here and wrecked a bunch of ships, and now shit's gonna hit the fan for the poor little Spartans. And we quickly see that the Spartan forces over here are pushed out of the town as the town rebels against them and the occupiers that it has. And we quickly see that Sparta is on the back foot in its own territory. And we quickly see that the only area, ironically, that was taken was the area over there. As we can see, many of these regions start to kind of again fight back against the country that they are a part of. And we quickly see that many of them just give up on the capital, basically. And basically, they also take over this area, do a lot of bad, fuck up a few Spartan troops in very many more ways than one. And we quickly see that the third army is forced to pull out of the area over here, although before it can, Spartan forces are cut off from it, and the third army over here of Sparta is destroyed. I'm gonna keep them, not gonna keep them here for a second, because, yep. But by the time that all of this had happened, Sparta already managed to consolidate the last of its army in the region over here. And it was like, you know what, let's abandon that area, they're gonna fight against our puppet anyway. Surprise, surprise, due to the help of someone very special, that really didn't happen. And with the third army actually arriving over here, after help from its own navy, and the second army destroying these forces over here and then landing, and the first army actually pulling off a miracle battle at the passage over here. It was very much a contender for who would take the capital first. And the good answer, or the only answer that you could say, is the guys who were the rebellion. That's because the rebellion had more support, as they had more people that were a part of Sparta. And so we quickly see that the Spartan people would have a lot, and more than just a lot of time to reflect on who their kings have been, what they have done, and basically their ideas of taking out the capital came true. They even took out most of the country over here, although this area kind of got taken over by the Athenians, who quickly took over more of these regions over here just so they could consolidate more ground. And then the rebellion just took everything else, and over here these guys managed to the only time they actually managed something was over here. Also, they managed to do a few slightly better offensives at the end of the battle over here. But during this, the Spartans quickly divided themselves into multiple different groups. The group over here is known as the Mysians. Not the Mysians, but something else entirely. Another group over here is called True Sparta, as they just call themselves that because, well, it's kind of true that they are in Sparta. That they are the Spartans. They came from this region. And eventually we even see a few other things happening, like when Athens gives this area over, we quickly see that some of these regions quickly form into another nation, and it just become very apparent to the people of Sparta that their people are more divided than ever, and they like it. Mostly like it. And seeing that this has happened in such a way that is just unacceptable, and also the taking of this was mandatory. The Greek people over here divided themselves not so well, as they had only three towns to go off of, and the northern one was that one. The central one was basically the one who took most of the regions over here, and also took a bit of land around the capital of this guy. And the final one was basically nothing very special. They just took what they could and just skedaddled. So yeah, Sparta has fallen. After so much time, they have finally fallen. And would you guess it, the Athenians just took whatever they wanted and continued on with their well, whole thing over here. And the reason they wanted this, not very special, they just wanted it. But now that they have all of this going, they recognize, oh fuck, we're about to die. And that's what happens as the rebellion quickly takes over most of the Attic lands, and we quickly see that due to this, Athens is forced to give up. And we quickly see that Athens is split into two, as its main regions quickly are given over, although it managed to, in the nick of time, just ask for a bit of land over here around its areas over here. And this guy quickly took over all of this and this, but it had a few problems, so they divided themselves a bit more. So, the first division, that's a bit good. Second division, not bad, could be better. And finally we have the third division, which is the islands and everything else that is not on the main island. Yeah, that's just something that happens sometimes. But this guy managed to retain that island and this island, and the islands kinda also had a problem falling. Basically, it's a large thing where people are like, yo, we're not made to be together, and they're like, no, we are, and then it just goes on and on. But this period is known as the period of the fall of Greece and the rise of another nation, the rise of New India. New India is called that because of its striking name for itself, that being New Indos. Now, why did they call themselves New Indos? Possibly because they wanted to. But as we can see, they quickly move into a lot, and I mean a lot of these regions, quickly taking over many of them. And the Indus government has had a long time to deal with this, and they haven't done anything. In fact, the emperor was like, yo, I'm just gonna pay you guys off, and how about just that? They listened for a while until the pay was like kinda cut in half because the people were kinda starving in those areas. And we quickly see due to that these guys justified saving their own people, providing relief to the people of India, in India or Indos. I don't know what to call it. But we quickly see that they managed to do a lot over here. They managed a lot of victories, a lot of battles. And the Battle of Lake Kampka, which is this lake over here, becomes very important in the Indus history, but not important enough for me to make a battle video. You should check them out. They're pretty knowledgeable in what events occurred. Currently I'm making the Cask Pass video. But as you can see, basically these armies had so little time to prepare their defenses that some of them even just outflanked each other so much that they didn't have much of a supply line to go off of. And we quickly see that due to this this tail over here that had most of the army supplies just kind of was cut off, and all of the north kind of fell. And once the north fell, I'm just gonna say it, shit kind of hit the fan, as occupation forces quickly arrived to occupy the northern parts of these areas. And I'm just gonna say, nobody was ready for what the occupation forces were going to do during the Indus, the Empire of Indus' fall. And we quickly see that is basically they will pull themselves together and push into these areas, quickly also pushing into more of our modern day Bangladesh and Thailand and India. And quickly after doing that, most of these areas will be annexed under the new Bangon Empire. Now the Bangon Empire isn't as strong as the Indus were, but once they took these areas and the rebellion managed to crush this army over here and also managed to take over most of the south, it was very apparent that the Bangon Empire would do something. And they would! Against the Indus, that is. And that was because they hate the Indos and they like the rebellion that came after it. So the rebellion comes in. What's its first move? Oh, how about we just divide ourselves into 3 countries so we can't do anything bad. Quick thing, where the fuck do you get the land to do that? And we quickly see that not only does this guy quickly make itself into greater central India, but south central India becomes an actual thing. There is an actual Central Indos country that is named Central Indos. Don't tell me I can just... Oh yes, that would be just a good nation to make. Just ignore this. That guy got destroyed at some point. Should I do so? Oh! At this point, these nations would have already failed. Not gonna lie. Over here, I think this guy would have done that. This guy probably would have taken this region, and maybe even this. Doesn't look that bad. But as we can see, some of these areas that were taken by these nations were very valuable for the Indus nation people. And we quickly see that the nation that arose from this kind of collapse was New Indus and the Mumban Empire. Because of course, the Mumbans are back. But the Mumbas at this point are so weak, and their previous leader was killed. The one who kind of reinstated this new leader, who is the son of the old Indus emperor, the illegitimate son. That illegitimate son has a wife and kids in the slums, and he's like, I'm not gonna do much, but can we just wrap this up? Basically, I don't want to allow my kids to freeze. And everyone is just so weirded out by a king who doesn't want to do anything but be with his children. Kind of weirded out, don't know why, they just are. And at this point, many people are going to accuse many of the historians of this time of being very, very good liars. Some of these nations just quickly have like workovers and all of that. But during this time, one thing that is agreed upon is the rise of new, new Myanmar. Because as you can see, this nation kind of had a rebellion. Oh, that's taken. Why are you doing this? And we see after a few more years, some nations kind of just took over other people's territories and land, basically. These two nations went to war. And basically, this was over a succession of the land, basically. Because somebody was like, oh, this land is ours, we should have it. Another guy was like, no. We should have it because we are the rightful owners of the land. And they were both from different countries. So when both people called the respective authorities of their own nations, what happened was they fought a bit, and then fist fighting started, and then somebody stabbed another guy, and it just became a huge issue. And we quickly see that the first attack would be against this village, which would be burnt down. Although due to the rainforest coming in and the rainy seasons arriving, they would be put out. So seeing this, the mods was used by the defenders to attack a bit, and we even see that they managed a smart offensive in this region, which was more inclined towards them because it had more red people in them. Yeah. But we quickly see that the idea of these guys was to take over a lot of these areas and then just go after the islands. Go after every island you can. Just take over the coasts. Don't let them have any coast. And if they have coast, why the fuck are we right there? And pardon my language, but yeah, that's basically what they do. They just take away as much naval territorial, regions that have navy access. And that's all what they do. And we quickly see that due to this, the nation over here capitulates. Somehow very fast. Nobody knows what caused these guys to capitulate so fast, but it's relatively thought that they just couldn't hold up with the amount of things that were happening. But in the south, the green guys went to war with these guys over here, managing quite a victory and taking a lot of territory over here, up to here basically. And once they did take this territory and were able to kind of basically supplement their territorial needs, and they saw that the war was going on their sides, where their doorstep, they were like, yo, how about we just support those guys that are getting attacked and just try and become the enemies of this guy. And this guy, who has become very long, I can't lie, wasn't ready. I'm just gonna say that. It wasn't ready. Because at this point in time, the Bangkok Empire had already done a few things, like expanded, made new technologies, and started to make their own ships. And there are many more southeastern countries that are doing what they are doing, but they are doing it a bit better, except for these guys who are, which are the some empire, I don't remember the name of it. But basically, they eventually get news of the war over here that springs out, and they hear that the green guys are having such a bad time, and the forces have already steamed through their territory so much that they're able to just take some territory that they wouldn't be able to take at some other point. But basically, this all of this would eventually just fall over. Nobody knows at this point whether all of this was true or all of this was cap. Like basically people were like, this wasn't true, this wasn't true, it's all a hoax, all of this was just a weird way of saying that these guys are stronger, better than this other nation. But nobody really agrees on who wrote down the knowledge, because that guy who wrote down the knowledge wasn't basically the same guy as most of the others were. I'm quick to see that not the same guy that most of the others were. He was his own person, but he was kinda a timely knowledge maker. Basically, he knew some stuff, and that's all he did. He knew stuff, and that's all he had for him. That is all he had for himself. Which is kind of weird, considering that most of the time that you see any nations over here, they should have like good things going on. But yeah. Eventually, some of these Burmese people over here that managed to escape from the green country gathered up into one large bunch and started to make their own few nations. This was the largest in the bunch, but they are united under one little chieftain. And we can see that a great federal chiefdom has started to form, although the full-on basically name for these nations that have joined this great empire are unknown even to this point. But only one name is known, and that's the name of the empire, and that is the Empire of Upper Myanmar. And that's because, let's face it, they are just Myanmar but upper. And Myanmar over here was like, yo, why did you name yourself that? That's kind of offensive. And they were like, because we don't really care about you. Also, do you want to have some of this stuff that we have? We call it tobacco. And it just got some smoke and everything was okay. Jokes on that, because nothing was okay. And eventually, once the empire had some of its nations expand into territories that were claimed by other countries, like the Myanmar claim on that region that they just expanded into, this claim that kinda intersected with this guy's with Banga's the Bangan Empire empire's how do I say this well claims. Everything went to kind of shit at some point. Nobody knows which nation started it first, but war, that was on the menu. Evidence of the war was found like in 1605, and nobody really cared. And currently, this is the last episode. We're gonna see something like a few maps over here, like this kind of map, because I'm gonna change all of this into a new we're gonna jump ahead of like 2 decades or so, so you guys would see what happened during those 2 decades, and we can just gloss over a few other details. But as we can see, the Empire of the Bangan Empire managed to do a lot over here, and they even managed to do a few more things, like get to this area over here. But they were not ready for what they would see next as troops of some unknown banner just met them at some weird area over here. And we quickly see these forces are of the force down south, and they were the first ones to invade this country of Upper Myanmar. Upper Myanmar, I'm just gonna say they wouldn't survive the war, and eventually they would be a nation that wouldn't exist anymore. Basically, Lower Myanmar, which is going to take a lot of territory, is going to be very mad at the rebellion, as it calls a rebellion in the north, basically taking their own territories. And they were like, yo, I'm gonna invade you now. And that's what they did. They invaded each other. Everything went alright at some point. And we see that the Myanmarese empire is very much in business. But that Sumatra has finally seen its first true nation. First 2 true nations. And we quickly see that we have the upper, basically, Sumatran Empire and the Lower Sumatran Kingdom, basically forming. Now, the Lower Sumatran Kingdom is a bit larger than the Empire is, but that's because it managed to unite more people and united basically other people over here. But also because from here people started to arrive, and eventually, once this nation was at some point, I'm not going to say at some point which point, but it kind of fell. People were like, yo, when did it fall? And historians would say, this words historians would be like, we don't know. Honestly, we don't even know when these guys fell. We just know that they existed for a long time, and then they didn't exist anymore. Probably they kind of had a collapse, economic or something. But we can't find any bones, so we can't say that there was a war. We can't find any weapons, any pottery, anything else, and that's all we can basically determine currently. And who would have thought that something like another nation would form out of the Sumatrans? Well, somebody would, but I'm not gonna say who. But currently we're gonna see both the Bangkoks and Vietnamese they're gonna do some stuff. Basically, Laos is in the middle of them, and the empire over here. So what the Bangkoks do? They're going to expand into these regions. Jokes on you, the Vietnamese have done it already. And basically, it's gonna be a bit of a weird thing to say, but the new empire that is over here quickly meets up with the Vietnamese people over here, and the Vietnamese are like, okay, we want everything you have, we are larger and stronger than you. And then they meet the first Asian war elephants and the mounts and all of that, and they're like, I'm gonna take all of that back, do you want something? And they kind of shit their pants at the sight of the thing, and it's recorded in Asian history that during the days of the first true king, which is basically the first true king of Vietnam, and the days of the great empire of the southeastern Asian areas, that many nations would meet, but these two would meet, and these guys would try to do something, but they would be terrified shitless, basically. Eventually, it was recorded that something happened between these two nations, and the border moved a bit down south, and then it was like some evidence of a war broke out. That a war broke out reached the historians, who would find bones and all of the things over here. People would be like, yo, this kind of happened, but then they were like, yo, why aren't there also Thai people over here, like the Thailandics or something, or the Siamese? And we quickly see that the Siamese Empire is something that will at some point happen, but we don't see much of that. We do see that the Malaysian Empire has started to occupy some islands over here. They don't really do much, but they do annex 2 of these islands, that being the ones closer to them. And then they just moved into these areas, and it was around this time that people were like, you know what, let's just take anything we have from these areas and just investigate thoroughly about what happened during these times. And they actually found out a lot. So the historians and the people who helped them in this world would figure out that the Myanmarese and these guys had a bit of a prelude, basically. This might be, yeah, I forgot. But basically, they would think that the Malaysians would have done a lot of war things, but actually they were surprised to see that they were actually very expansionist, and they were very good at it. Basically, they did everything good. They don't know exactly why the Malaysians went to war with the Bangkok Empire, not the empire, but the dynasty. And we quickly see that people will be like, yo, I see some evidence of another civilization here, like a few bunch of civilizations. And they would be right, there would be some civilizations over here that kind of were found out by accident. These nations didn't really have any records of them except for what they left behind. And the only things that they left behind was whatever they had. And it was very, very weird for a nation to not leave behind a lot of evidence of itself at this point. Except for a few nations that kind of didn't know how to leave any evidence because they didn't have either any interest in doing so or they didn't want to. I will see that the Malaysians would actually record these people in some of their scriptures that would be later found in Sumatra. And these scriptures would be very important as they're known as the scriptures of Malaysia. And they would be important because they would record a weird empire of the seas that would have as strong as a navy as Malaysia, but as weak as a military as well, basically Vietnam. And that's all they knew. That's all they knew. They didn't know anything else. But from the scriptures they could tell that down south in Sumatra there was some kind of group here. I'm gonna call them a bit of a hazy area. Well, not a hazy area, but they're gonna be called very lightly. As nobody knows how many there were of them, but they do know around a lot of this time signs of expansion had appeared. And it was from the southern kingdom of Sumatra. And we quickly see that people would be very intrigued by the new knowledge of the Malaysians at this point. And a lot of the Malaysian historians would be like, we have read in our history that there was a kingdom down south in Sumatra, and this nation would go to war with various groups, and eventually would have like weird things happening to it. Some nations would be like fighting for their own things, and some nations would be fighting for land. But most of the time, what we saw was that some of these nations just kind of popped up and left afterwards. We even got a few things over here that I have shown, but basically, Malaysians, they know a lot about this region over here, but they don't know much about everything else up north, because, well, these two didn't really talk that much. But around this time, South China had begun its conquest of its own territories, and the empires over here started to kinda see some very large problems, as the dynasties had problems uniting the people under one. And we quickly see that the southern Chinese would quickly invade into its former ally, who has at this point become very much against it after learning that they were trying to destabilize them. Although the South Chinese would not be able to take any towns, but they would be able to take a lot of villages and cut off a lot of the trade routes that were over here. And once they did that, they were like, yo, okay, here's the deal. We're gonna leave you alone, but we want a promise that you won't invade us ever again. We want a promise. Not something that's lackluster, not something that's weird. We want a specifically done promise. Something that you yourself can promise to us. And people were hesitant, people were talking. Eventually, news got out of this, and people were like, "Yo, we should listen to this guy, to the South Chinese." And this is the period known as the Great South Chinese, rise of power. And we quickly see that people are going to call it that because they became very powerful. Evidence of their riches are right even in the areas around the Indus areas. And during this time, during the Indus time, basically a war was happening between these two. Nothing really changed on the borders, so I'm not gonna go over them. Over here, we do see that the Hanois are having a weird thing happening. Not the Hanois, but the Han shogunate. The Han dynasty, well, basically family dynasty, has at this point been very weird, because around this time the power of the family over here became so powerful, and eventually renamed themselves the True Hanoi Empire. And the Han, not Hanoi, the True Han Empire Imperial family. And we quickly see that due to that, they kind of were almost persecuted into the existence. But they managed to quickly regain their status and wealth, as the emperor kind of didn't really tolerate much of their bullshit. But we quickly see, in a shocking turn of events, rebellions will spark all across the country, seeing as this nation has finally decided to spark one up. When this rebellion starts, many people are to join it, and they quickly see that a large amount of the South Huns join them, because they are basically conquered peoples, and they still remember their history as conquered peoples. They were never subservient to one nation, they will never be, and the Huns weren't very much fond of that, so they kind of had a lot done. Things done to these people to make them subservient. Basically, they starved them, took away their money, took away their cattle, their rice, and all that to get them to listen to them, but they didn't. And eventually, what came of that was a full-on civil war, and the Kyushans, the true Kyushans and the actual Kyushan shogunate would be like, oh, this is kind of good. How about we just fight each other at some point? We do see that over in these areas, Han forces did manage to secure the southern gateway into the southern regions, but that was completely imbalanced by the massive failure to defend these southern areas, and quickly the failure to defend them became one very large failure as forces managed to actually get trapped over here and destroyed. Seeing this, the Huns quickly sent out a big large force to attack over here. They will be able to take a lot of these regions, not much, but they will be taking a lot of them, and eventually they even took some of these regions over here. Seeing the massive failure of their own nation's defense, defensive capabilities, the Chu Han dynasty forced some of its leaders to redesign its strategy, and we quickly see that once it was redrawn, many people were able to understand what these guys wanted to do, and quickly the incoherent mess of a fight that had been going in the south quickly became so organized and so well prepared that the Huns were basically shocked out of their mind. They weren't ready for this. And eventually this preparedness reached the north, which was already basically taken over. Nobody was ready for what came over here. Although nothing could be said directly, as there was still a good amount of forces over here of the Han dynasty that were able to defend themselves. Over here we quickly see that the forces of the Huns managed to actually destroy this rebellion while also entering this area. They also managed to push a bit further into this guy, although not that far, and eventually liberation forces would start to arrive to liberate these people and take over the regions over here, and eventually, slowly but surely, the forces would be taken out. The Han shogunate would start to fall, and quickly forces would start to see themselves in basically one way or another joining this rebellion. Eventually, the Han dynasty managed to fall, all but in the north, where it was only subjugated through relentless negotiation. Once that was done, all of this was re-annexed, but quickly news of these people not being very fair to their own people and trying to at least somehow take control of them reached the guys over here, who at this point kinda agreed on what they wanted to do here. They wanted better power, they wanted power under the nations, and they quickly agreed that they should make one united shogunate. The shogunate quickly became very strong, and we quickly see that the southern Japanese or southern Nihon shogunate quickly launched a large operation called Nothing, because nobody really knew what the operations were at this time, and nobody really wanted to call anything large an operation. But basically they took some of these regions over here and even pushed a bit further into the southern regions, taking a lot of them over. Seeing the utter incompetence of the new royal family, some areas decide to completely just break away from the empire and join into the what would be known as a great dynasty of the people that were over here. And the little amount of people who would still listen to whoever was in charge over here would be so small, nobody really would care. I'm not kidding. Nobody would really care who was in charge. They just wanted something to be done about the lackluster treatment of their own people, and it was done, but very badly by the Kyushins, not the Kyushins, but the royal family over here. And due to this, the royal family quickly lost many regions due to rebellious movements and all of that. Eventually, 2 of these rebellious movements would be annexed, another one would be full-on puppeted, although in some form it would be left alive, and the last one would be fully integrated in the nation, and it already joined in the beginning, making it very strong. But seeing this, the two shogunates would almost fight to the death. The only grace being over here that another rebellion broke out and this time it was to gain independence in the south for the Tokians. And quickly the Tokians took over the areas over here, and the basically palace was also taken. So basically a lot of people were angry around this time, and nobody really knew what to do about the pent up anger about that they had. So a lot of the people just went to war. And when they came back, they were like, yo, this anger is still within me. How about I just fight against my own nation? Some of these nations that were newly created were made from prior generals who had listened to the new royal family, but now we're like, yo, this royal family is shit. I don't know why I even listened to them in the first place. And now they're just trying to distance themselves from the nations over here. Although there is a few shogunates that try to take over, re-establish the Hon shogunate, we see nothing of large and strong strength on the large and strong scale that was the Huns would emerge. And it's around this time a man would be born in Japan. He would be known as the first great emperor of Japan as a whole on Nippon. And he would be born to a very new nation called Nihon. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a great video for me. I have managed to do so much. Also the Mesopotamians, they have done a lot, but next episode we'll jump around 2 decades into the future and a few other things. So the map might be changed in some ways because of the new wars and things that happened. But as you guys know, see you guys next time. Peace.